Surrounding our beautiful city of Byron Bay, based very much on Byron Bay, is a large cliff area filled with rock pools, waterfalls and streams. As well as surrounding Byron itself is a paradise of sand and water, so of course we have to meet some seaside Pokemon. We've met some deep water Pokemon, and soon we'll meet some more shallow water Pokemon. But I think some Pokemon you can find generally sitting on and around the water is important too. If you don't like water types, you might find some of these Pokemon boring, but I've thrown in some curveballs in the designs here. First things first, let's do some version exclusives. Both water fairy types, both could be found in these rocky tide pools in droves. The decorated crab is a fun little creature. Imagine just walking around and cutting off bits of plants and sticking it to you to make your own daily outfits. It's a great idea for a Pokemon, but I took a bit of a different spin for this Pokemon. The main idea I had was a Pokemon that was a bit of a sewing box, combined with a decorated crab. The pincers are fabric shears with one big claw and one smaller claw, closer to that of a fiddler crab. The decoration part's made to look like pins pushed into its pin cushion-like body. I think the secondary design took over here, focusing a bit more on the fashion sewing side rather than the crab, but it's okay, it's fashionable. Not yet though, I hated this first iteration and quickly went back to a different version. In the second version, instead of front on in that bizarre pose, I went for a more of a 3/4 pose and making the claws look a bit more natural and just the design in general looking a bit nicer. I also changed the eyes just a bit to add a bit more personality. This thing would absolutely sound like Lunch Lady Doris from The Simpsons.
Lunch Lady Doris, have you got any grease?
Yes, we do.
Then grease me up, woman!
Okie dokie.
Dexia, the decoration Pokemon, a water and fairy type. Found around the shallows of Ostara, Dexia loved nothing more than to decorate itself with colourful parts of the Ostaran reef and even discarded parts of other Pokemon. Dexia uses larger claw for big cuts and attacks, while its smaller claw allows it to cut with great dexterity. Dexia has a particular fondness for an aquatic plant that produces round cuttings that it places on its shell. These spheres let out a pheromone that dissuades predators in the water. Dexia's big claw meat is incredibly tasty and can regrow them if removed. Dexia's abilities are shell armor and sharpness. So obviously I don't have actual version names yet, but the second version exclusive is a little fairy water Pokemon that fits very well into the Ostaran ecosystem, based on the wonderful little penguin, or to really sell what I'm slinging, the fairy penguin. Our little penguin friend starts out as a bowling pin. No real reason, that's just how penguins be shaped. Line them up and bowl them. Originally I was going to have a penguin with fairy wings, but that was a little on the nose. So instead it has very fairy-esque shaped flippers. Can't fly, just like most penguins. To help sell that real fairy typing, it has a cute little love heart on its chest and a wondrous little swirl on its head. Maybe not the most crazy interesting idea, but sometimes things just need to be cute. And as if you can't see Fairly waddling around in big groups around the Byron rock pools. Fairly, the fairy Pokemon, a water and fairy type. Rock pools are swarmed by Fairly during most times of the year. Their adorable nature and friendly demeanor mean that people will travel from regions afar just to witness Fairly in their natural habitat. Once in the water, Fairly speed around like little torpedoes. They love to chase Isocryl and devour them. Entire swarms can be devoured quickly by Fairly. When Fairly look for their mates, they puff out their chests. Once they find the right Fairly, their chest glows a brilliant pink in tandem with their new mate. At night, this leads to a beautiful spectrum of pink on the rock pools. Fairly's abilities are Cute Charm and Swift Swim. So I guess depending on which version, droves of either Dexia or Fairly would be skittering about the rock pool, maybe taking leaps into the water, little shinies standing within the groups for you to find. I think this area would be quite safe from predators, so that's why they'd flock there. So next it's time to do a 2-stage line. Back in the day I was munching on a Hungry Jack's burger on the harbour in Sydney, enjoying the heck out of it, only for me to be slapped multiple times in the face when a seagull dived down with the audacity to wrench a bite out of that Hungry Jack's burger. And that's why I hate seagulls. I got challenged to a duel and lost that day. But of course Australian life on the coast wouldn't be the same without these freaks. And we already have Ivan, so I think we need another trash bird. I wanted to embody the sheer gall, or gull in this case, and sass that seagulls have. So this gull is looking at you with a cheeky expression, ready to pilfer your snacks. Because of the slightly pirate theme I'm going with it, it's holding up a leg and also wings and in big ol' hooks, great for fishing and hooking a cheeky snacky. It's got that dark eye bag because of course it's gonna be a dark type. I really just wanted this thing to be as smug as possible. I don't know, can you all tell how much I despise these things yet? The evolution does save face a little bit by changing its creature type. Golfer, the pilfer Pokemon, a water and dark type. Golfer are notorious for food thievery. They'll hover above beaches and cities in groups, and then once food is either held or thrown, they swoop in with a wild craving for the food. Golfer respect the natural order though, and will allow the alpha or their evolutions to get in first. The tips of their wings are hardened and hooked, which allow them to hook food out of trash cans, and also fish for Pokemon. Their craftiness and ability to do whatever it takes for food has led to their infamous status. A particularly crafty and adept golfer will evolve and become head of its flock. Golfer's abilities are Levitate and Gluttony. Although frigate birds aren't the same thing, I combined it with a gull to create this evolution. This concept actually was very similar to the old fan concept I had for Quaxley back in the day. Ah, memories before this all happened. A big puffed up red chest, sort of like a cravat, where its beak can rest into, the sides of the head reaching out to look a bit like a pirate hat. This could very much be a One Piece character at this point. I wanted it to feel a bit like the sea version of Honchkrow or Magsly. It's a harsh sea captain who takes no prisoners, but will take a chippy as a bribe. Most frigate birds are black, so to keep it in theme, it's still white, although maybe black would have looked good for the pirate theme. Oh well, probably a bit on the nose at that point. I think this is unique enough to separate itself from our other frigate bird Kilowattrel. Admiral, the pirate Pokemon, a water and dark type. Admiral are known for being massive bullies, especially when it comes to food. It will enlist the help of Golfer and other Pokemon it can easily bully to help collect food, which it will store in secret cliffside coves. The hooks it has on the tip of its wings are now even sharper, and it will use it to shred Pokemon as it flies by. It will even extend its wing out and skim the water to try and hook water Pokemon for an easy meal. Its chest is a status symbol, and when two Admiral fight, they will puff out their chests as far as possible. This sometimes will be all that happens in an Admiral fight, a chest measuring battle. Admiral's abilities are Levitate and Gluttony. These two would absolutely be all around the coast of OSTARAN, in Ozside, the Silver Coast, anywhere where there are chippies. Definitely would attack your farm too after those yummy crops. Next, let's break up the water types with something a bit silly and goofy, a dragon type. You ever heard of a wobbegong? They are carpet sharks that sort of sift the bottom floor of the ocean. They have funny faces with whisker-like things that help sense things as well as provide it with extra camouflage. I want this sort of less serious dragon, a bit like Turtonator or like how Stunfisk is just this silly little fishy guy. Originally it was going to stand up on its tail looking like this funny man, couple of kids in a trench coat looking dude, but I decided to go more fish shaped. This thing, once I coloured it, actually looked a bit too serious for what I wanted, and it was all in the eyes. I'd end up making them tiny goofy little dots. It's not to be underestimated though with that ground dragon type. Also, the little brown ring on its face makes it look like a mouth going ooh. Woobygoober, the wobbegong Pokemon, a ground and dragon type. Woobygoober make their way slowly across the deep sandy oceans around OSTARAN, sifting for Dexia and other shelled Pokemon for it to crunch down upon. Despite not looking, Woobygoober's teeth are quite sharp. It doesn't enjoy conflict much, and if antagonized will wiggle its body violently to create clouds of obscuring sand. During that time it will either swim away as quick as it can, or use its natural sandy camouflage. Wibiguba's skin is quite prized as a way to make clothing and accessories, but hunting them for this purpose is strictly prohibited. Wibiguba has a new ability called Sand Sifter, where this Pokemon is immune to stat lowering effects while in a sandstorm. This one really just started as an art style test, so not much to really say about it. Rolling off the back of the Skeledirge for Alligator Fusion is a Stingray mixed with some Thermal Vent energy, and a Fire-Water type at that. I ended up giving it this underside face. Unlike Mantine, this thing would stand like this all the time, ready to harpoon anyone who gets in its way or steps on it. Harpool, the Vent Pokemon, a Water and Fire type. By absorbing heat energy, Harpool can unleash thermal energy that superheats the area around it, becoming fatal to Pokemon in the area. It can also encapsulate this energy within bubbles, creating projectiles that blast from special vents on their body. Harpool even have access to a powerful harpoon-like tail, which it will lash out with and try to skewer anything that gets close enough to stand the heat. This has a mild venom to it that helps slow down the enemy. Harpool will lay face down to gather heat energy, and thus are easily stepped on. This never ends well for the person who steps on Harpool. Harpool's abilities are Flame Body and Poison Point. Port Jackson sharks are fun. They're relatively harmless apart from their venomous spines, but we aren't doing another water poison type or anything like that. No, I wanted to combine it with something you'd see in Port Jackson, the Opera House. This would be a rock water shark that is flat on the bottom with Opera House-like peaks along its body. They all go in one direction though, just to keep it more structural looking. The eyes on Porchera help convey the sedentary look of it just lazily floating upon the sands near the shore. Of course, for an Opera House Pokemon I had to give it the whites of the same material as the Opera House. I bet Porchera has a beautiful voice. Add that one to the Bandru Skeledirge. Porchera, the opera Pokemon, a water and rock type. With beautiful and haunting voices, Porchera move across the seafloor, detecting prey through special vocalizations that have inspired many operas performed at Pennett's Concert Hall. Its body is made of a special rock similar to that of limestone that provides it with a sturdiness that other Pokemon refuse to test, and leave Porchera to their ways, leaving many to believe that Porchera sings songs of loneliness. Their weight and powerful voice make them dangerous combatants, but their physical prowess leaves much to be desired. If you can lift a Porchera, you probably won't be in much danger. Porchera's abilities are Liquid Voice and Sturdy. Of course, there's so much fish, we need a good old-fashioned fisher. A kingfisher, if you will. Can't have an Australian region without a kookaburra. And I wanted something to represent kind of an old man fisher, like something from the lighthouse.
Fortnite.
A kookaburra with what looks like a massive beard and fishing cap, looking like a grizzled veteran, ready to catch a sharpedo or whale lord with their abilities. I think it'd be cool if maybe you could only find Gizora randomly when you fish. Instead of bringing up a catch, Gizora would fly down as an encounter instead. It'd need to have a laugh for its cry and be a complete opposite to Golfer. Gizora, the Kookaburra Pokemon, a water and flying type. Gizora are interesting Pokemon. Highly social, they'll sit with fishermen and help catch fish, so long as they get a cut of whatever is caught. Their beaks work like spears to help finish off hooked fish. A single dive bomb with their beaks is enough for most Pokemon to be finished off. Gizora by themselves will live around rivers and even the large rock pools of Ostara. This usually doesn't last long as Gizora will attract other Pokemon, which it feels compelled to provide for. It battles Admiral fiercely for territory and food, but usually gets overwhelmed by the sheer size of the flocks Admiral are part of. Gizora has a new ability called Kingfisher, which increases the damage of this Pokemon's flying type attacks against water type Pokemon by 1.5 times. So as you go down the rock pools of the surrounding area of Bayan Bay, would you be adding any of these Pokemon to your team? Comment your thoughts down below, as well as like and subscribe and share this video around with fellow Seagull attack survivors. Next video we're going to be turning more characters into Pokemon. But of what series, you may wonder? Well, you have to tune in next week and see. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.